Poverty is not just the absence of money, but the absence of opportunity. And the United States is a country where you have both freedom and abundant opportunities. Moving to the United States has given me both. I grew up in Lagos, Nigeria. I came from a close-knit family. I was the third of four children. And the best thing that my parents gave me was the gift of education. Even though I came from a poor family, they gave me education with the instruction that this is the tool that will help me to dig my way out of poverty and ignorance. But what my parents did was that they instilled in us the value of faith, hard work, and not giving up. They made us realize that if you put in the work, you will definitely get the reward. I came without a dime in my pocket. All I had was big dreams, determination to succeed, and the resilience. I got my first job at the age of 14. My job was on a construction site. My duties were to move concrete on a large pan from one end of the construction site to another one. I worked on that day from around 6 in the morning to about 7 at night. At the end of the day, the employer refused to pay me. And the reason was because she did not authorize the foreman to hire me. So I worked from sunup to sundown and didn't get paid. That tore up my spirit. And from that moment on, I decided that I was going to become a lawyer. And I was going to use every ounce of strength within me to fight against injustice, regardless of how powerful the opponent is. I am a man that worked my way up from nothing. I know what it means to feel like you're being unfairly treated, and I'm the person that can stand up to opponents regardless of how big or how powerful they are.
Thank you for joining us on this wonderful episode of Legal Angle with Emmanuel Olawale. I have two important guests with me today. They are the lords of the courtroom, but they're coming down from the bench to talk to us today. I have Judge Gina Russo and Judge Stephanie Mingo. Thank you
Hey,
for joining us.
thanks
No,
for having us.
Thank you.
thank you for having
So
us. Yeah.
I'm going to have you introduce yourself. So I'm going to start off with Judge Russo.
Well, good evening or afternoon, everyone. And thank you again for having me on your show. I am Judge Gina Russo. I'm a current sitting judge on the Franklin County Municipal Court. I was elected to a full term in November of 21. Prior to that, I did serve briefly on the Court of Common Pleas for just shy of 2 years. Prior to that, I was a Franklin County prosecutor where I prosecuted felony level offenses for approximately 7 years. And then prior to that, I was actually a civil litigator in the Voorhees law firm where I was an associate for 10 years. So, all told, I just passed 20 years of experience in the legal field.
Thank you. Judge Mingo.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I am Judge Stephanie Mingo. I have been your Franklin County Environmental Court Judge since 2019. I always like to start with that I am the first female elected in that seat, and so proud to be serving on the Environmental Court bench. Just prior to taking the bench, I was also, like Judge Russo, a Franklin County prosecutor. And I've spent most of my career in public service. I also served as an assistant chief legal counsel for the Ohio Auditor of State. And then in another lifetime, I was actually in private practice where I practiced in domestic relations and juvenile court. So I am so pleased to be joining you, Emmanuel, and Judge Russo today to talk about Beyond the Bench and our experiences on the bench.
Thank you. And Judge Russo, can you tell us the kind of cases you handle on the municipal bench?
So as a municipal court judge, I'm in the general division. There are 15 judges in the municipal court. Judge Mingo, as she mentioned, is our environmental court judge. So we have 14 judges on the general division. I am one of those judges. We hear misdemeanor level criminal cases, which could be violence, assault, on down to like a minor misdemeanor. And then we also hear the traffic cases. So your OVIs, all the way down to minor misdemeanor traffic offenses like speed.
Thank you. And Judge Mingo, tell us about the environmental court.
Yeah, so the environmental court has exclusive jurisdiction on all cases involving properties that may be a public nuisance. So if that property is alleged to be in violation of health, building, zoning, housing, or safety codes, and a municipal prosecutor determines to file a complaint, that complaint comes into environmental court. I'm also responsible for hearing cases involving properties that may be a part of illegal activity rather. So if it's a drug house, or perhaps it's a house connected with human trafficking, I'm also responsible for hearing cases involving those types of issues. In addition, I hear all of the cases in Franklin County involving environmental crimes. So we're talking about your illegal dumping, it could be litter, it could be the transportation of hazardous waste. And then finally, as the environmental court judge, I do have the distinction of hearing all of the cases in Franklin County involving animals. So if it's an abused or neglected animal in Franklin County, I hear all those cases as well.
Wow, you handle a wide array of things. You handle like properties and animals, and wow, it's
Yeah.
interesting.
And Emmanuel, one thing I forgot to mention was the civil component of what the municipal court judges hear. We hear civil cases involving up to a $15,000 jurisdictional limit. We will also hear your eviction cases and any type of collection case on the civil side of stuff. So we handle those cases as well. Yeah.
Thank you. And just recently, well, I'll let you tell us when you started. Both of you started a community outreach program known as Beyond the Bench.
Yeah.
And essentially, it's like you taking your work on the bench beyond the bench. Can you tell us what inspired this program?
So I'll start. So Judge Russo, Judge, you came to the bench, the municipal court bench. Was it in 2020 or
March of 21?
March of 21. Okay,
yeah.
Very good. So sort of as Judge Russo was transitioning onto the bench, we had this conversation about what type of public servants we would like to be. And I'd known Judge Russo, and I knew that we had the same desire in terms of wanting to serve the community and wanting to really engage with the community. And so we had this discussion about beginning a very aggressive outreach to the community. And one of the things that I think frustrated us both is that you sort of have that gulf that you see between judges and the community. And we wanted to figure out a way to sort of bridge that gulf and figure out a way to really engage and do it in a genuine way. And so we came up with Beyond the Bench. And really it was our way of being authentic and genuine and really wanting to reach out to the community, and not only reach out, but be a part of the community and be active listeners in the community. And we have found it to be, Emmanuel, so very rewarding. We have enjoyed our public service so much more since starting Beyond the Bench. It's just been a wonderful experience for us. And we're thrilled that we're able to engage with the public in that way. And we're thrilled at the attention that Beyond the Bench has gotten. I know that it's a little bit different to see judges so engaged with the community on an ongoing basis, but we have thoroughly enjoyed it. We've learned so much about the public that we serve, and certainly informed our service on the municipal bench.
Yeah.
Thank you. Judge Russo, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, it just as Judge Mingo indicated, when I was coming over to the Franklin County Municipal Court bench, of course, we had known each other. We had seen each other at various community events. We were very like-minded in the way that we chose to serve. And I think we both had a view that it's part of being an elected official too, being entrusted with a position like this. And frankly, I was surprised when I became a judge how few members of the community actually knew who their judges were. And so we took it upon ourselves to come off the bench and into the community to introduce ourselves, to be visible, to be accessible, to listen to what was going on in various parts of Franklin County. As you well know, Franklin County is very large. And so, a lot of the time we won't have interaction unless we make that interaction possible. And so whether or not these people were going to be criminally justice involved or justice involved, period, whether they had a civil case or any type of case at the Franklin County Municipal Court, we wanted to make opportunities to get to know the community. We wanted opportunities for them to get to know us. So that the first time that they saw us wouldn't be in a courtroom setting, wouldn't be in a position where we were hearing a case. We understand that can be a very intimidating and scary process. So we were both of the view that, we serve this community. We need to make ourselves visible, accessible, and hear what's going on out in the community. And that was something that we were both very passionate about.
Thank you. And Judge Mingo, while answering the questions, you said you decided on this aggressive outreach.
Yeah.
And it seems that you've been going beyond the bench aggressively. Why aggressively?
You know what? And Judge Russo, I'm sure, would attest to this as well. When we started Beyond the Bench, I remember our first outreach event. And after the event, she and I just sort of looked at each other, and it was just electric. We were so energized by the experience and by not only what we were able to provide the public in terms of educating them about the bench, but then also what we received when we talked to the community, when we reached out and did it in a genuine way, and they reciprocated. They shared things that were going on in their lives and the things that weigh on them the most, the things that impact their community the most. And when the event was over, she and I we looked at each other and we said, how else do we serve? How else do we do our job without knowing and understanding the folks that we serve and the problems that they, whether it's the victories or the issues that they face each and every day? How do we serve? How are we our best? How are we best able to serve as judicial officers if we are not connected to the people we serve? So we were elated, with the experience. And I think since that first event, it's just sort of energized us, and we've sort of been able to continue that momentum.
Thank you. Judge Russo, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think that we were both also pleasantly surprised about how well this was received. I think we were anticipating that the responses could vary. I mean, people could have thought, well, these are judges. They don't affect anything that I do. A couple of boring judges. I don't know. I don't see. Up to, yeah, please come and be a part of our organization and really let's interact. Let's engage. And we were pleasantly surprised that it was more of the latter. We were getting, we had shortly thereafter created a Facebook page Beyond the Bench, and where people could message us. We also had an email where people could send us messages or requests to come out to the community and come to an event that they were maybe putting on. And the focus of this was just to be present, just to be visible, to engage, and to listen, to really listen to what was going on. Obviously, as judges, we're prohibited from rendering any type of advice or decision on anything that's going on. And we certainly can't go to a place and hear something that might impact one of our pending cases. So we've been very, very careful and cognizant not to do that. But I think that we were pleasantly surprised with the amount and the extent of the interest that we got from people just saying, we'd like your presence in our community. We have members here who would like to talk to you, who would like to meet you. and to engage. And that was pleasing.
Yes.
It was a pleasant surprise. Yes.
It really was. And I'd have to say that what I found that was so rewarding is that people didn't just want to talk to us about, legal issues in general and the court process in general, but they really wanted us to just listen to the issues that impacted their household and impacted their neighbors. It was, listening to a grandmother who told the story of her son having cancer, or it was a single father who talked about the struggles of raising his children. They just appreciated that we were there and that we were engaged and that we were listening.
Yeah.
Thank you. And you mentioned that beyond the bench first experience. Do you want to shed more light on how electrifying it was? What made it so electrifying?
Yeah, so we had our first event at, believe it or not, our first event was in Reynoldsburg, and it was at, we put on Facebook that we were going to be at it wasn't a yogurt shop, I think it was a shake shop, a milkshake shop. And we didn't know sort of what kind of response we would get to that. And so, when folks would come into the shop and would sort of saddle up to the shake bar there, they just sort of sat next to us and engaged. We introduced ourselves, and the conversation was it was natural, it was authentic, it was genuine, and they were so pleased that here we are, two judges, coming in after a day on the bench, and we're really just here to engage with you as a Franklin County resident and hear what's on your mind and hear what you would like to say to one of the judges. As Judge Russo said, it's so surprising that so many people don't know who their judges are, but I think when they see you in the community, I think that it's a pleasant surprise for people, and I think it's, as I said, it's been so rewarding for us.
And we've done a number of various activities since, whether it be an organized community event that we'll go to and set up a booth and engage with people as they walk by, or a smaller breakfast with a couple of community members who we've received an invite from. We've gone to a boxing ring for a talk with members in the community over there. We've done a number of different things. It's not always the same type of event or the same sort of outing. It's varied, and that's what also makes it so fun and engaging, is because we do different things. It's not just a talk or a meeting or a pre-planned event of any type. Sometimes it's spontaneous. Sometimes it's, hey, can you guys come out for a breakfast? Can you meet us over at this event and set up a table? And so it's varied, and it's been rewarding in that respect as well.
It really has.
Thank you. And after that first event, you decided to just make it real, Facebook, Instagram, and social media. And how did you even come up with that name?
It's
unique.
Judge Russo and I, we talked about the concept. We knew what it was that we wanted to do, but we also understand and appreciate how to market this effort. And so she and I sort of both gave it some thought to kind of figure out what we would call this effort. And I don't know, I think just one day after work, I just thought, what do we do to describe wanting to go beyond our efforts on the bench? And that's sort of how it came to be. I thought, that's it. It's beyond the bench, going beyond the bench for justice in the community.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And we had talked a couple of different iterations before that. But we knew the two concepts that we wanted to integrate were obviously the judicial system and the community, and somehow tying it all together with engagement and interaction and active listening. And so it was Judge Mingo who actually thought of Beyond the Bench. I think we both knew that we wanted to have some sort of gavel in our logo there, just to, again, tell people or notify them that we are judges. But the community aspect of it was a huge, important part of it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's a very apt title. I believe it came in a moment of inspiration.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
And yes, what are the common comments that you get from people in the community? Judge Russo, you want to go first?
They've also ranged, but by and large, they've all been very positive. And I think I was out in the community in an unrelated event, not a Beyond the Bench event, and I don't even think it was in my professional role as a judge. I think I was out personally, and somebody noticed me and said, "You're Judge Russo," and I said, "Yeah," and they said, "I just got to tell you, the community effort that you are doing is simply amazing. I don't think that I've ever seen another judge in this community so active and engaged with the community, and this Beyond the Bench effort that you and Judge Mingo have undertaken is really impressive." And it kind of took me aback because I wasn't in that role. I wasn't at the Beyond the Bench events or any of events that I was partaking in as a judge. And so it was completely unexpected, but I was very pleased to receive that. I'm glad that our effort to reach the community, it's working. Obviously, that demonstrates to me that it's working, that people
Yeah.
are noticing, and that we're visible and present, just like we set out to be. And that people feel that they can approach us and communicate with us and talk with us, because that was the goal, to be accessible and approachable by the community.
Judge Mingo?
I've had similar experiences as Judge Russo described, and where I've been in the community and someone has said, "Hey, you're one of the Beyond the Bench judges," and I have to laugh because obviously my first thought about my services as the environmental court judge, but it's just it always tickles me when someone comes up and says, "Hey, you're one of the Beyond the Bench judges," and I say, "Well, yes, I am." And then in the back of my mind, like Judge Russo, I think to myself, "Wow, this outreach effort, it's really made a difference. It's really made an impact. Just in going into an event, someone will automatically see us and think you're one of the Beyond the Bench judges." And Emmanuel, as you pointed out, that it's the title, it's that what we call this outreach effort. It says so much about what we're trying to do, and it's really it's so it means so much to me. I guess that people appreciate um, that we are two judges who truly and genuinely want to be a part of the community and to understand the community that we serve. And as Judge Russo said, most of the feedback has been very positive. Um, Usually in summer months, we are inundated with invitations to come to different events, and so I think it was last fall, Judge Russo and I sat down and said, "Hey, we're going to kind of have to figure out how we're going to focus a little bit here, because we found ourselves going in different directions, and there weren't enough hours in the day to accept all of the invitations that we were receiving." So we sort of outlined some of our goals for 2023, and one of the things that we needed to do in 2023 was really focus on outreach, but to focus on the legal aspect of outreach. So in 2021 and 2022, we saw us at different events. They were neighborhood events, pop-up events. But this year in 2023, we're really trying to focus on the space of legal outreach, and we've tried to work with some of our partners to go out to the community and really ensure that every community has access to the resources impacting justice. One of the things we learned the first 2 years of Beyond the Bench is, not every community has access to resources impacting justice, and that is for a multitude of reasons. But she and I sort of looked at it, and we saw the need, and we committed 2023. We will do everything that we can to go into those communities that are less likely to have access to the resources, and do everything we can to put those resources in their hands, whether it's, educating them about the process or giving them the tools that they need to sort of access the resources. We wanted to make sure that we're doing that frequently throughout this year. So, and that too has had a really positive feedback. We've received positive feedback from that effort as well.
Yeah.
Thank you. And what are those surprising things you've discovered while out doing Beyond the Bench?
Well, I'll start. So one of the things, one of the things Judge Russo and I realize is that most people know that you can't talk to judges about an open case. But what we found out is that that's pretty much the basics of what they understand about our role in terms of engaging with the community. And one of the things we also noted was the confusion between the branches of government. And when I've had the one-on-one conversations with individuals at different events, that, they're a bit confused about the roles of the executive branch, the judicial branch, and the legislative branch. And so I have found when we're at events that there's a space there to do a little bit of educating so that they understand a little bit more about their local government and a little bit more about what we do as judges. And so that education piece, I think it's, for judges at least, I think that's been missing quite a bit, not just in Franklin County, but I think you'd find that throughout, that people don't really know exactly what to expect from judges and what the limits are in engaging with judges. So I know I've enjoyed that education piece when we are out at events and having that opportunity to speak with folks about the role of their judicial officers.
Judge Russo?
Yeah, I have to agree with that. And I think we've actually even had these conversations. Legal Aid has joined us on some of our activities. Some other outreach organizations have also joined us along the way. So it's nice that we back on too when, if we're asked a legal advice type question, we can refer them over to Legal Aid. But by and large, what Judge Mingo is describing has been my experience as well. It's an opportunity to not only be present and to engage, but also to provide that education, not only about what we do and who we are, but as Judge Mingo mentioned, the three branches of government. Hang on just a moment.
Yeah, Judge Mingo, let's continue the conversations. And what are those common complaints you get from the people you meet?
So I'm so glad that you asked that question, Emmanuel. Probably the most common complaint is, very often the public feels as though if they've been justice involved in any way, very often and very frequently they feel like they're being picked on. And I know from my experience in the environmental court, I hear a lot of people say, well, why is it you're picking on my house? I've had a code case and, but my neighbor's house, Joe Smith down the street, his home is so much worse. Why are you picking on my house? And again, it's an opportunity for Judge Russo and I to really educate the public about, well, how does a case make it into municipal court? Sometimes we sort of bring them back to the fundamentals. And, I'm always mindful of the fact that they don't understand that, judges don't pick their cases. It isn't as though, we reach out and we, pluck this case out of thin air and say, okay, we're going to focus on this particular individual. But it's a good opportunity for me to talk about how that case made it into the judicial system and how it's working its way through the legal system, and educate them about the role of the city prosecutor, educate them about who made the code, who made the codes that they are required to abide by. It's an opportunity for me to talk to them about the legislature, about the fact that they are actually the ones who made the code. Your city council They actually vote on the codes, and this is why you are required to follow this particular law. So that's probably the biggest complaint that I get. Why am I being picked on? I hear that quite frequently. And Judge Russo, I don't know if you hear that very often. I think probably because of the nature of the work that we do in environmental court. Sometimes for community, it can feel like the court is focused on particular areas within the city of Columbus. So I'm always working to explain that. I, as your environmental judge, I don't pick my cases. Those cases come in to the court by way of the city prosecutor. He files those cases, and I am required by law to hear the case. So that is probably the nature of the biggest complaint. But again, I will say when we are in the community, we don't hear a lot of complaints. It's really just really joyfulness that we are out and about and just there to engage and listen.
Yeah. And I think that's right. I don't think the complaints are what, come to my mind when I think about that engagement as being first and foremost. But I guess if I were going to pick one, the most often I hear from people when I explain to them that I'm a municipal court judge and I explain what kind of cases I hear, the complaints that I hear are license issues a lot of times, because those issues can be they can be cyclical. And what I mean by that is if you get hit with a suspension and you get hit with another one, or if you get caught driving without a license, then you get another one, and they can compound, and they can build up those reinstatement fees and those fees, the bureau fees, and it can make it very, very hard to get your license back. So a lot of people want to talk about license issues and how hard it is when they get in the cycle of not being able to get out of that. And so we take information, and as Judge Mingo mentioned before, one of the things that we want to do is provide as many resources as we possibly can to the various areas of our community. And so we talk about the amnesty program. We talk about the BMV. Obviously, I'm not a representative of the BMV, and there are certain things that can only be taken care of by the BMV, but I provide them the information. I listen to the things that they have to say. And I take that knowledge back with me as a municipal court judge, because there are things that we can do to make sure that the people that we are serving from the bench don't get caught in that cycle. And we can help them get their license back and get them back out on the roads. Obviously, our goals as judges should be to get people in better positions than when they came into the court. So if we can provide them that information and show them in this particular example how to get that license back so that they can get on the road, they can drive, and they can get back and forth from work. So that should be our goal. And I do hear a lot of complaints about that, and I'm very cognizant about that issue. And like I said, having gone out into various areas of the community and seen just how impactful it is, that's good information for me to have when I do my job from the bench. Yeah.
Thank you. How do you decide which events to attend?
Gosh.
Well, and I don't know that we've ever been in a position that we've ever actually said no. If we have the time and the ability, and it's something that, won't call into question whether or not we would have a pending case, or whether or not it's going to be, near or at a property that might be subject to one of our cases, I don't recall ever really saying no if we had the time to go to an event.
Right.
We've been invited to a birthday party. We've been at breakfasts. As I indicated before, the events have varied.
Yeah.
And one of us will likely get an invitation in, whether it be through the Facebook, or whether it be through email, or whether it just be through a relationship that we've already built and that we continue to foster. They may reach out to us and say, hey, can you come back to this event? And I think our first inclination is always to try to make it, if we have no conflict and that our schedules permit. So I don't remember ever really having to say no, unless it was, again, something that would call into question whether we should be there in our judicial capacity.
I would agree. I don't recall an event that we've said no to either, except for perhaps if it's a time conflict and we're not able to make it. But for the most part, we have attended everything that we've been invited to, and it's like I said, it's been so rewarding, on both ends.
And how has Beyond the Bench affected you as a judge?
I'll start. I think Beyond the Bench has had an impact on me that I don't know that I was prepared for. When we went into this idea of being aggressive about outreach, we certainly both had an inclination that, it was so important for us to be engaged as judges. But I think what took us both by surprise is what we brought back to the bench. And I think it was just a more informed and a more clear-eyed service um, that I at least I find I'm having that from the bench since going out into the community and engaging. When we return to the courthouse after being at an event, whether it's in Milo Grogan or Linden or it's on the west side of Columbus, and we return to the bench, we bring all of those experiences with us, all of those stories that they have shared with us. We bring that back, and there's something about engaging with the people that you serve, and then coming back to the courtroom and looking out and seeing all of those individuals and knowing that each and every one of them comes into that courtroom with a story and with a struggle. I think it's made us more compassionate judges. I think it's made us more informed judges. And I think it's made us more engaged judges. And I think while we're active listeners in the community, it's made us better listeners from the bench. And I think Judge Russo would attest to that as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And just to expound on that, as a judge, you're responsible for making really important decisions and almost life-changing decisions for these people that are coming in front of you. And I found no better way to make those decisions than getting down off the bench and into the community and getting to know the people that I'm serving, and that in some cases that I'm going to have to make very important decisions in their lives. So really interacting with people, getting into conversations, listening to their concerns, but also being present in the community has just given me such a real life practical experience. There's not something that you are going to learn in a book, and it's not a rule of law or a statute that you're going to become familiar with. These are people and their lives. That's what is important, and that should be first and foremost. And there's no better way to serve or to make decisions than to actually getting to know the people that you're serving, and that you will be making decisions that will be impactful in their lives.
Yeah, I agree.
So Beyond the Bench has really exposed you to hear the story of people, their struggles, and in turn you are able to show them compassion while making decisions on the bench.
That's right.
Yes, absolutely.
And even though you meet all these people, does it feel like what makes Beyond the Bench different from campaigning for office?
It's
Yeah,
totally different.
completely.
And
Beyond the Bench is a pleasure. Campaigning is the beast. Unnecessary.
Tell us, who wants to go first?
Well, when we actually started Beyond the Bench, it was well before my campaign efforts started, I think in 21. And we had conversations where we wanted to keep this completely separate and apart. So we never utilized or went through Beyond the Bench or even appeared at any campaign events with Beyond the Bench. Beyond the Bench was in Judge Russo and Judge Mingo's individual judicial capacities as two judges who felt this is the way that we want to serve the public as elected officials. You'll notice that in either of our campaign literature, there's no mention of Beyond the Bench. There's no mention on my campaign page of the Beyond the Bench or Judge Mingo's campaign page. We kept those separate. On my judicial page as a judge, there would be, but we were very careful to keep those things separate. We wanted to make sure that the public knew that Beyond the Bench was two judges who wanted to serve in this capacity and would do so well beyond our campaigns. And we've held true to that. And that's been important for us. We both ran in November of 21. Here it is, March of 23 February of 23. I'm getting ahead of myself. But we have every intention of continuing throughout our terms and, God willing, into the next term. So for me, while getting out in the community is a similar function of both a campaign and Beyond the Bench, they're done in very different ways and with very different intentions. Campaigning, you really want to meet people, you want to shake their hands, you want to tell them who you are. But Beyond the Bench is more service, community service, intentional minded, in that I'm a judge, I serve you, here I am, I want to engage with you, and I want to know what's going on with you so that I can better serve you. And those are very different functions.
Yeah, I could not have said it better, Judge Russo.
Thank you. And you mentioned that you ran for office last year, and both of you won re-election, as we can see. What does it feel like to run a campaign, especially a re-election campaign?
Take it away, Judge Russo.
Well, it's been a year. So we ran actually in November of 21. So it's been over a year now, almost a year and a half, I guess, in the spring. But it's relieving. It feels like it's a relief, because now you can focus 100% on being a judge. You can focus 100% on being community minded and serving to the best of your ability, and furthering things like Beyond the Bench. You can do those things without having to worry, am I going to still be here in a year? I have to worry about whether or not I get the opportunity to keep doing this. And I think when you can take that worry out, and you can take that fear of not being there, and just really give it your all, 100%, and really focus on being a good judge and a good public servant and serving, it makes you better at what you do. So it's a relief, but it also allows me to better perform my job that I was elected to do.
Absolutely.
Good, Mingo?
Yeah, I don't know that I could have said it better than Judge Russo. Getting that campaign, obviously it's important for us in 2021. At some point, it was important for us to sort of slow down on some of our Beyond the Bench efforts, because we both needed to focus on our individual campaigns to ensure that we would return in 2022 to continue with our judicial service and outreach efforts. So we did that, and we did conquer it, and it is behind me. I have the model of sort of one election, one term at a time. So I don't look at the future. I don't look at, what's next, what's the next campaign going to hold for me. I just sort of focus in on my judicial service, and focus in on Beyond the Bench, ensuring that I am being the best public service that I can serve and I can possibly be. And for me personally, Emmanuel, I always feel as though I am in a race against time. Obviously, I know that each term is 6 years. And for me personally, I have 6 years to give Franklin County the best that I have done. And so I sort of always approach each day with, I've got to bring it, I've got to give it, because I've got these 6 years to be the best servant that I can be. And I will do my best to do everything I can to be certainly worthy of the voters in Franklin County, and certainly to be worthy to serve on that bench. So in some ways it is a race against time, but it really is a race against time to give back and be the best public servants that we can be.
Thank you. And every 6 years or whatever the term is, you give your best. You've been giving your best to the community. What does it feel like when it's time for re-election? And that fear, that anxiety of what if? How do you handle that?
You know, I am not. I've always been vocal in terms of I am a believer, and so I don't carry that stress. I can't. It's too much. You can't focus on being the best judge that you can be and the best public servant you can be if you're always worried about the next election. You have to let it go. And I always say and tell my husband and my kids, it's going to be what it's going to be. When that next election comes, it is what it is. I'm going to work as hard as I can. But in the end, it's so important, I think, as an elected official to remember that we don't own these seats. And so, for as long as Franklin County wants me to occupy the seat as the environmental court judge, I'm going to give it the best that I have. But I don't own that seat. And being a judge, why it is a part of who I am, it is not everything that I am. So, as I think, as any elected official will probably tell you, it's so dangerous to tie your role in public service into who you are as a person. I was Stephanie Mingo before the bench, and I'm going to be Stephanie Mingo after the bench. So I try, and as much as humanly possible, not to um, completely tie my identity to being a judge. It is not my seat to own. The voters have decided that I may occupy that seat for the next 6 years, but I don't own that seat. And so I will work hard to continue to serve. But if they chose otherwise, it will be okay. And that's the wonderful thing about living in America. Our citizens have the right to decide who their elected officials are. And I respect that. I honor that. So,
Idrissa?
Yeah, and I think I was wanting to say that we're grateful. I mean, obviously, we're grateful for the time that we've been given to serve in this position. We're doing the job as we see fit, as we see that these positions, and in particular, being a judge of the Franklin County Municipal Court, should, and showing, at least demonstrating the way that we believe that these judges should be community public servants. We're doing the best that we can from the bench. And so in 6 years, if the voters feel that we are deserving of another 6 years, that would be wonderful. But I think, as Judge Mingo said, it'll be okay if they choose not to. Of course, we'd be grateful for another 6 years, but it'll be okay. We will, at least hopefully by that time, be very proud of the work that we did do,
absolutely.
including beyond the bench.
Absolutely.
And how can people send invitations to you to invite you to an event?
Yeah, so you can certainly reach out to us via social media. We have a Beyond the Bench Facebook page, so feel free to inbox us on that page. And then we also have a Beyond the Bench email. It's Beyond the Bench, Beyond the Bench 1@gmail.com. So you can, individuals can certainly feel free to email us, and we will be more than happy to check the calendar and see if we're able to come out. We'd love to
Yeah,
engage. So either
absolutely.
one of those.
Thank you. And what does it feel like to be one of the minority of few judges who are able to run for re-election in a county that your party is a minority, and against the odds, you won your re-election? What does it feel like?
So, Emmanuel, I would be less than honest if I didn't say that I recognize that the ground in Franklin County is shifting, and it is shifting away from Republican elected office holders. That being said, Judge Russo and I run in races that are nonpartisan. And we have always said that there is absolutely no way that you can do this job as a municipal court judge as a Republican or as a Democrat. And whether or not you believe that, that is honestly the case. And we hope that it is reflected in our service to Franklin County. There's absolutely no way to do this job, again, as a Republican or a Democrat. Judges are, again, at the local level, we are nonpartisan elected officials. And so it's troublesome to me, the idea or the thought that politics will ever make its way onto the bench. It should not be that way. It should never be that way. And so, while as a candidate, I have to look at the fact that the ground is shifting. I know what my service has been to Franklin County, and any time that I am up for election, I will stand any day proudly on my service to Franklin County, regardless of what party endorses me. At the very end of the day, it's the service that you must stand on. And so I will always remain prepared to answer to the voters of Franklin County. And I will do that by standing on my record of service.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more with that, Judge Mingo. You said it better than I can, but I agree. I think even Judge Mingo and I started out even running for judicial seat, not as politicians. We're not politicians. Obviously, that goes back to what we were talking about before, and trying to educate folks when we see them on the three branches of government. We do not make law. We do not create the law. We are vested with one task, and that is to follow the law and to apply the law. And you can do that as a Republican, you can do that as a Democrat, you can do that as an independent, and certainly that has been the responsibility that we're tasked with. So I continue to see my role as nonpartisan, regardless, again, of what party endorses me. I go in onto the bench every single day to do the best job that I can do, to be as fair and impartial and as neutral as I can be in my courtroom, regardless of who comes in it. I think I owe it to the voters that they get a courtroom where I am going to be fair and impartial and neutral and unbiased in everything that I do. So I see myself in that role, and I do not see myself as a politician, and I do not see where politics enters anything that I do. And like Judge Mingo, I proudly stand on my service to this community, and I will continue to do so regardless of political affiliation for the rest of this term and hopefully next term, regardless of whatever party endorses me.
Thank you. And stepping outside the box or stepping beyond the bench. And I believe the people of Franklin County rewarded that and put you back on the bench, or let you maintain the bench. Tell me what it felt like on that election night when the results came in and you saw that the community also came out the way you went to the community. They put you back on the bench.
Just unbelievably grateful. Honestly, just unbelievably grateful. Just heard and understood, because we truly did have a message that was, we're here to serve you. And again, I know that I'm sounding repetitive in that way, but that really was the message. And that's been the message for the 4 years that I've been serving, is that, I am your judge. I am here to do the best job that I can, to be as fair and impartial and to serve. And I heard, I felt that people really received that message, and I was very grateful.
Bingo?
Oh, I would say the same. I think just, very grateful. 2021 was a different year. We launched Beyond the Bench. And then, as I said, going into the fall, we decided we needed to slow down a little bit with Beyond the Bench and focus on our individual campaigns. So it was a whirlwind of a year. And so on that night, I sort of chose to spend it with just immediate family watching the returns come in. But Emmanuel, I'll say this, and it's the honest truth. I've now ran and won in two Franklin County elections, and I will say that I've entered both election nights understanding that I gave, the campaign all that I could give. I've given all that I can on the bench. And so whatever comes, whatever may happen at the end of that night, it will be okay. I am very firm about not tying my complete identity to a win or a loss. The service is important. But as I said, I'm very clear minded that I don't own this seat. It belongs to the voters. And so they have a right to have a say. So I knew at the end of the night, whatever the results may be, of course, I did it when I would be disappointed, but I knew it would be okay.
Thank you. Whatever the result is, it will be okay because you know you've been intentional in reaching out to the community. You've been intentional in bridging the gap between the community and the bench.
That's right. That's right.
And tell us what motivates you every time you put on the robe and you get on the bench. What motivates you? What inspires you?
I think humility. I mean, really, just knowing, and it's the honest truth. And I'm certain that our colleagues feel the same way. But it really is every time we sort of robe up and get ready to sit on the bench. It's a humbling experience because we're just 15 of us have been selected to sit on that municipal court bench, and it is truly an honor each and every time we put that robe on and climb the steps to the bench. It really is an honor. It's a humbling experience, and it's certainly not something that Judge Russo and I take lightly. We really have been entrusted to make major life decisions that impact the people, the citizens that we serve. And so it's a humbling experience. And I really try to remember each and every day. It's sort of a bit of a gut check that I go through, just to really sort of leave everything behind in chambers. And when I go on that bench, just try to be the best listener that I can be, to really understand the cases and the defendants and the parties before me, so I can make the best informed decision that I possibly can in accordance with the law. But it's really a humbling experience each and every time. There isn't a day that I go in that it doesn't hit me what an honor it is to be able to serve the city.
It was up.
Yeah, and it's a humbling experience because I think each and every time that you put on the robe, you also have to appreciate the magnitude of the importance of your responsibility. Regardless of the case that's coming in front of you, whether it be a minor misdemeanor up to, a misdemeanor of the first degree, which is the highest level of offense that we hear over a municipal court, or regardless of whether it's over, $250 at stake between civil parties or $15,000 at stake, our jurisdictional limit. Each of those cases are important to each one of those individuals. So regardless of the case that you're hearing, it is going to impact someone in some way. And it could have a very, very drastic impact on any of those people who will come in front of you. So it's humbling because every time you put on that robe, you have to appreciate the importance of your decisions and the importance of your responsibility and how they are going to impact somebody in your courtroom. And so it's not to be taken lightly. And even though we put on the robe 365 days a year minus weekends, it doesn't, every day is as important as the one before and the one after, because every day someone important is going to be in your courtroom, and that is a member of the community.
Thank you. And what does it mean to you to bring Beyond the Bench to Legal Angle?
Listen, if you make it on the legal angle, you must be doing something
That's
right.
That's right. That's
No,
right.
it is such an honor, Emmanuel, to be on Legal Angle. I've watched your podcast and your show, and it's just, it's an honor. You've had a wide variety of folks, public servants, folks just doing wonderful things throughout Franklin County. So to be here on your show, it really is another honor and sort of another exciting experience that Beyond the Bench has brought us. So we're thankful. We really are.
Yeah. Emmanuel, you have done such a great job with this program.
Yes.
And I constantly watch and look at the next people that you have, your guests, all impressive lists of guests that you have. And you've kept the topics fresh and relevant and interesting. So to have the two of us and Beyond the Bench, I'm humbled to be a part of that list. So thank you for including us. But I'm also grateful because this is another opportunity and an outlet for people who are watching this and listening, for them to get to know us and also our initiative, Beyond the Bench. And if, Beyond the Bench is right for you or your organization, if you'd like to have us out, please contact us. We welcome any opportunity, again, to interact with members of the community. So thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for bringing Beyond the Bench to Legal Angle. It's been wonderful talking to you, and it's been wonderful having you talk to the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Thank you.
Yeah. And for those of you watching us at home or listening to this on your phone or anywhere as a podcast, thank you for joining us. We appreciate your time. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube page, our Facebook page, and to follow us on Instagram. Until next time, take care and stay blessed. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.